Welcome, and thank you for standing by. At this time, all lines will be on listen-only mode until the question-and-answer sessions of today's conference call. At that time, you will need to press star 1 from your touch-tone phone, unmute your line, and record your name clearly. And I'd like to introduce Jared Liu.
Great, thank you, and thanks everyone for joining us. This is the third Thursday webcast series. It is a monthly webcast held at the lunch hour. The trainings leverage local successes by amplifying to a larger audience, in this case, 3 model methods, materials, and approaches. Sessions are planned to last no more than 1 hour, with 2 to 3 presenters speaking on the same topic from slightly different perspectives, each for 10 to 15 minutes, followed by 5 to 10 minutes of questions and answers. Today's session is approved by the ISA for 1 CEU hour and by SAF for 1 CFE Category 1. If you haven't already given me your certification number, please email me after this session. Also, most state landscape architecture boards require only a certificate of completion, which ACT can provide to members who request this. This is a program of the Alliance for Community Trees, and we encourage you to consider joining if you're not a member. We want to thank our sponsors for today's call, the Home Depot Foundation and the USDA Forest Service. Today's session is the value of shade, energy and climate impacts. Concern about carbon emissions and associated climate change, along with rising fuel costs, have made energy conservation a pressing public policy issue. Increased planting of urban shade trees has been suggested as one way of conserving energy by reducing the demand for heating and cooling. Indeed, some utility companies offer customers free or reduced cost trees. However, until recently, no studies of utility billing data had actually shown that trees reduce energy consumption. Our first speaker today is Misha Sarkowicz. He is the program manager at the Sacramento Municipal Utility District, otherwise known as SMUD. His current responsibilities include managing the district's energy efficiency programs, such as the Cool Roof, Shade Tree, and Multifamily. Past responsibilities include performing financial impact and process evaluations for the various districts' energy efficiency and demand-side management programs, load research, statistical and cost-effectiveness analyses, and market research to support development of new energy products and services. Misha earned his PhD in economics from Florida State University in Tallahassee and his bachelor's and master's in economics from California State University in Sacramento. And we are very pleased to welcome Misha to the call.
Thank you. My name is Misha Starkovich. I'm a program manager here at SMUD. Here is my contact information, so if you wish to call me or contact me, please do so. I would like to say a few words about SMUD. SMUD is a public utility. It generates, transmits, and distributes power to about 900 square miles, which is essentially Sacramento County. It's a public utility governed by 7 board members, all elected. It has $1.3 billion in operating revenues last year, has about 2,226 full-time employees, about 590,000 customers, about 80,000 are commercial, the rest of them residential. It serves 1.4 million people in our service territory. And in 2007 and 2008, SMUD was awarded J.D. Powers as the Best Utility in USA award. We started the Shade Tree program as a way to mitigate the urban heat island effect. And here is the thermal map of Sacramento taken by NASA in 1997. And you can see the urban area in Sacramento are hot. What is cool essentially is the river and residential areas that are shaded. But urban areas are hot. So what we did early in 1990s would do assessment, what is the land cover distribution? And we discovered that about 21% of our land cover is vegetation, grass or trees. In fact, 13% about trees. Then 20% are roof, 22% are roads, 13% parking, etc. So we developed a program to mitigate urban heat island effect. One way to mitigate the urban heat island effect is to increase vegetation. So in 1990, we started a SMUD Shade Tree program. Then in 2001, we started cool roof program. The objective was to increase the roof albedo or reflectivity. And both shade tree program and cool roof program, SMUD was the first utility in the nation to set up a program to promote tree planting and cool roofs. We do not have anything for light color pavements, but the bottom line is we have at least two programs to mitigate two measures: increase vegetation and increase roof albedos. Trees provide energy-saving benefits. They provide direct shading. They provide evapotranspiration effect. In the winter months, they provide a wind shield and therefore reduce the heating need. So they provide clearly energy-saving benefits. Trees also provide benefits in terms of carbon sequestration. They sequester carbon from carbon dioxide, and also they improve our air quality. They release oxygen back into the atmosphere. So when we define the program objectives, our primary and short-term objective is clearly load reduction, reduced electric peak demand of air conditioning during the hot summer months. And we have a very hot summer month, 5 to 10 times in a month. In the summer months, the temperature exceeds over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Our secondary long-term objective is reducing the urban heat island effect, reducing the ambient temperature in the city 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit, and therefore indirectly reducing the air conditioning need. And the tertiary long-term objective is market transformation. We would like trees to be the standard practice when it comes to urban plan, urban growth. And we recognize immediately up front that trees provide positive externalities like improving air quality improvements, carbon sequestration, enhancing aesthetics in the region, promoting the sense of community, but we do not necessarily quantify those benefits and try to incorporate them into cost-effectiveness analysis. We started the program Sacramento Shade in 1990. The program was implemented in collaboration with the Sacramento Tree Foundation, which is a local nonprofit community-based organization. It's funded 100% by SMUD. We provide pretty much everything free: 5-gallon trees, stakes, ties, fertilizers, and expert advice coming from Sacramento Tree Foundation. We have more than 150,000 program participants since 1990. We have planted since 1990 more than 450,000 shade trees. Our annual budget is about $1.4 million annually, and since 1990, SMUD has invested more than $30 million. We received several national and state awards for this program. If you look at the benefits of a tree, most of the benefits come from the trees planted on the west. You can see here, the west by far, the west tree planted on the west side provide most of the benefits. In addition to providing direct shading benefits, the tree planted on the west provides benefits in the early morning hours on adjacent homes. So when you combine direct shading and adjacent home shading, the tree planted on the west by far provides most direct benefit to the district. When we convert those benefits in the present value terms, we come up with a value of PVB. So here gives you the benefits of the trees in different cardinal orientation. As you can see, the west by far provides most benefits. Then we take a look where the trees are planted. This was all done in 1996 when we did our impact evaluation study. We discovered between 1990 and 1996 the trees were planted everywhere, all over the map. What we wanted to do is design the program where we would end up promoting tree planting on the west side where the benefits are maximized. So what we developed is a tree siting guidelines for the program. But this was implemented in 1997. We drew the line, only the trees where the PVB is greater than $20 per tree are allowed. So for example, if you have a small tree, you can plant a small tree near the building from 0 to 15 feet, adjacent to the building from 0 to 30 feet, and far from a building from 30 to 45 feet, or on east from 0 to 15 feet. Those are the only tree locations allowed for small trees. If you want to plant on the south, it has to be medium trees or a large tree. So you can see, for example, this gives incentive to Sacramento Tree Foundation to promote large trees planted rather than small trees, promotes tree plantings on the west side rather than somewhere else. In addition to Sacramento Shade, we have a community shade component. It was implemented in 1997. It was designed to plant trees for public places like schools, parks, streets. It's also implemented in collaboration with Sacramento Tree Foundation. It's 100% funded by SMUD. This time we provide 15-gallon trees in addition to 5-gallon trees, free trees, stakes, ties, fertilizers, and expert advice from Sacramento Tree Foundation. We have about 20,000 trees planted since 1997. Our annual budget for community shade program is $300,000, and since 1997 we have planted more than $2.5 million. The average benefits of trees are 125 kWh per year per mature tree. This figure, 125, is the average tree. The value varies dramatically from orientation, from tree size, from tree distance, whether it's a near, adjacent, or far. So this 125 represents the average value of kWh savings of all those 450,000 trees planted since 1990. The average demand savings is 0.048 kW per mature tree. This figure was revised recently to take into account the improvements in energy efficiency due to California Title 24 standards for residential buildings, and also we took into account higher than expected tree mortality rate for urban trees that we experienced in the program. In terms of the carbon benefits, we group the benefits for large-sized trees, medium-sized trees, and small-sized trees. And here it gives you the value of the total carbon sequestered and total CO2 sequestered for large, medium, and small-sized trees. This does not take into account environmental benefits of the avoided power generation. That is reported separately as part of our energy efficiency portfolio. And that benefit varies dramatically from utility to utility because each utility has a different energy mix. Our energy mix is very clean. We have a lot of hydro, solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, and natural gas. We do not have any coal power. So our benefits for SMUD is we assume for every megawatt hours of savings, we save 810 pounds of CO2. So that's our assumption specifically for SMUD. Different utilities might have a different benefit. In addition to promoting the program, promoting the shade tree, we created something called Tree Benefit Estimator. It was posted on our website, www.smud.org. There you can input the information, the data specific to your tree siting, tree planting, and it will give you the total kWh savings, kW savings, carbon and CO2 sequestration benefits. It takes into account different climate zones in the United States, and it's a relatively simple tool. You don't have to have a background in demand-side management or urban forestry. The tool was developed by SMUD. It's based on our SMUD Shade Tree Program experience. It was developed to be easy, free tool. It oversimplifies some of the aspects of urban forestry. It has some certain assumptions which are rather broad, but nevertheless takes into account the impacts of direct shading, evapotranspiration, heating penalty, takes into account the tree growth rates, tree survival rates. And here I printed a printout for San Francisco and Oakland, San Jose, California area as example what will be the benefits of a mature tree planted, let's say 20 years ago, and a program trees. Program trees takes into account the mortality rate and a growth curve. And same printout for Sacramento, California. So the same analysis can be done for any climate zones in the United States. And that's that for me.
All right. Thank you, Misha. We are going to open up the lines for questions and answer. Robin, if you can do that, please.
And thank you. At this time, we will begin a question and answer session. To ask a question, that will be *1 from your touch-tone phone. Please unmute your line and record your name so that I can introduce you. To withdraw the request, it's *2. Again, to ask a question, *1 from your touch-tone phone.
Great. And for anyone who's shy, wants to remain anonymous, or just likes to type, up in one of the headers at the top, you see the Q&A. You can type your question in there, and I'll be happy to come on the line and read your question for you. So I want to start off too, Misha. All of my questions are going to be in the framework of thinking about other nonprofits who would like to do a similar program with their utility company around the country, because I think the SMUD Sacramento Tree model is really the best that there is out there, and a lot of people are pretty envious of it. So maybe just to start off, very simply, why should a utility company do this?
Well, it makes economic sense for a district, for SMUD. We shut down a nuclear power plant in 1989, and we basically lost half of our power generation in one event, one day. So rather than building another power plant, we decided to invest aggressively into energy efficiency, energy conservation. And shade trees are basically another measure, another tool in the box that we can use to save kWh and kW. Therefore, we don't have to go on open market and purchase the power. So it is a cost-effective strategy. There are other measures out there that are more cost-effective than planting shade trees, but shade trees provide other positive externalities that we take into account. So, public relations, carbon sequestration, air quality improvements, promoting the community spirit, all those things are positive externalities which are not necessarily part of cost-effectiveness analysis, but together the shade trees make a lot of sense for us.
Okay. And what makes Sacramento Tree Foundation a good partner? I mean, not to put you on the spot while they're also on the call, but, again, thinking about this in terms of other nonprofits who would like to approach the utility, how should they be thinking if they want to approach the utility about being a good partner? What should the nonprofit, how should they be structured for that?
Well, there are many reasons why SMUD is going with Sacramento Tree Foundation. First of all, they have the expertise, they have a background, and they have a passion for urban forestry. SMUD is a utility company. This is not our core business, so we don't have that necessary background and passion or expertise in this area. Secondly, they have a much lower cost structure than a company that has a unionized labor. Secondly, they're always, they're community-based. They're close to our customers. So if we didn't have Sacramento Tree Foundation out there, we would have to basically create it. So it's a good thing that Sacramento has Sacramento Tree Foundation. Otherwise, it would be very much more costly for us to deliver this program.
Did you decide on what size to start with? I'm guessing that the program is scaled up over time, and when you first began the program, you had to figure out what it would look like.
We are dealing with issues of market saturation. We started the program in 1990, and basically we saturated the market. We're dealing with the new construction areas, and the new construction is basically stalled. So our program goals has been reduced year after year. We are aggressively marketing the program, trying to maintain the certain tree planting goals. Right now, it's 13,000 trees planted annually. When we started the program in 1990, we were planting more than 50,000 trees. So it's just a part of the market transformation. You have to go along that curve. At first, you're increasing the tree planting, increasing rate, and then you reach the points of diminishing returns.
Okay. Can you define heating penalty, please?
In the winter months, even though we are planting deciduous trees, the trunk of a tree provides some kind of shading penalty. The heating is increased, therefore there's a penalty to the customer. We estimate it's about 5%. So even though there's a heating penalty in the winter months, the cooling savings in the summer months are substantially larger. Therefore, the net impact is dramatically bigger than a heating penalty.
Okay, and is the estimating tool accurate for all North America latitudes? For example, 61 degrees north in Anchorage, Alaska?
I don't know if I have Anchorage, Alaska in my fee benefit estimator, and I really don't know how much, cooling load they have. If there is no cooling load for utility in Anchorage, Alaska, obviously the shading benefit is not there.
Okay, here is one. I'm surprised by minimal values of shading of neighbor homes given the small lot sizes of recent development. Does this reflect your program planting at older homes with larger lots versus new trees planting in newer development versus older neighborhoods?
Mud service territory is essentially urban, very urban. So even in older neighborhoods, with the larger lots, they're not large lots compared to the rest of the nation. They're like a quarter-acre lots. Right now, we are dealing with a new construction setup where the lots are dramatically smaller. It's basically we have problems where we don't have a room to plant a tree on the side. We have to plant a tree on the front and the back. The side lots are pretty small, minimal.
Okay. Do you know of other utilities that are using shade trees as an energy reduction strategy?
PG&E has a pilot right now. PG&E is a local, next door utility in Northern California. They have pilots in 3 areas. I know the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power has a program. I know San Diego Gas and Electric has a program. There are a few other small publicly owned municipalities that have a program. They have utilities and they have a program in California.
Great. And we're also going to post a list after this session, and not all of them on demand-side reduction, but with other tree organization utility partnerships. And we have a number of groups who are working both with public and private companies. So not all this same model, but a lot of people who are out there partnering with utilities. Does the operator have any questions in queue?
I'm sure no questions on the phone line.
All right, I'll keep going online. Question about funding. Can you say where SMUD's funding comes from for this project? Is it demand-side budget, general marketing budget?
Sure. Before 1996, demand-side management, energy efficiency program were part of the resource mix, and we were competing with other supply-side options. So we would look at the cost-effectiveness of the shade tree program compared to the other power generating options, and we would decide whether this is a cost-effective strategy or not. In 1996, California legislature deregulated electric utility industry here in state, and in the process they created something called public goods surcharge. They mandated that all utilities, investor-owned utilities and public utilities, have to spend a certain percentage of their gross revenues on public goods. And public goods are defined as energy efficiency, renewable energy, low income, and research and development. So a certain percentage of our revenues go every year automatically into energy efficiency program. We spend about $34 million annually every year on energy efficiency program. Out of that, shade tree program takes about $1.4 million, and then community tree $300,000. So it's funded from our public goods budget.
Okay. Do you know if SMUD's benefit estimator is similar or the same to the one that Davy and Casey trees use, or what the difference is?
I really don't know the methodology behind the Casey trees, so I really don't know. I cannot comment on that.
Okay, and I'll give you one more question, and then we'll move on. How is irrigation provided to the planted trees? The city of Las Vegas would love to implement a similar program, but here in the Mojave Desert, we average less than 4 inches of rainfall per year, necessitating costly irrigation.
First of all, we selected species that are drought resistant or tolerant. Secondly, all the trees are planted in private property yards, front, backyards, side yards, which are irrigated. That's a condition of the program. We will not give a tree to the property owner and plant in an area that's not irrigated because the tree will die. We have a lot of questions dealing with planting trees in a parking lots where there's no access to irrigation, and it's really a difficult choice. I mean, I really don't know what can you do to save a tree if you don't provide the water.
And I imagine that Jacob will fill in a little bit later with his presentation about how to educate the homeowners about properly caring for the trees and such as well. So, all right, well, great. Well, thank you, Misha. We'll move on, and if there are further questions for Misha, we can get to those after everyone has presented. Our next presenter is Jeffrey Donovan. He is a research forester for the USDA Forest Service's Pacific Northwest Research Station. His two main research areas are the economics of wildfire and the economics of urban forestry. And his urban forestry work includes studies quantifying the effect of trees on property value, energy use, crime, and health. Jeffrey has a bachelor's degree in biochemistry from Sheffield University and a doctorate in forest economics from Colorado State University. Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So a couple of years ago, I became interested in the effect of trees on energy use, and in particular summertime energy use, because there hadn't been any studies that had actually used utility billing data. Most of the studies take a modeling approach, or in one case an experimental approach. Trees were brought in containers, but nobody had actually analyzed the utility billing data. And unfortunately, in Portland here, it's not really warm enough in the summer to warrant, most houses don't have air conditioning. So I was looking for an area that was warm in the summer I could use as a study area. And Greg McPherson, a colleague, Dan Davis, suggested Sacramento, and he put me in touch with Misha and Jacob, both of who were very interested and very helpful. And this study couldn't have happened without either of them. So the point of the study is to estimate the effect of trees on summertime electricity use, that is May 15th through September the 15th in Sacramento. Specifically, I looked at 460 single-family homes in the Woodland Park neighborhood. And I chose this neighborhood because there was a fair amount of variation in tree cover. And as Misha was talking about earlier, what really the two characteristics of a tree that's going to affect its energy conservation is its size and its location relative to the house. This next slide I put up. So this shows, so what I did was I divided the area around a house into 12 zones. So there's 20, 40, and 60 feet zone on the north, east, south, and west side of the house. And this diagram shows you that. And the area of those little trees actually means something. That's the average crown area that was in each of those 12 zones in the sample. I also should say that we didn't divide up the crown area into multiple zones of a particular tree. So, for example, the darker green tree there in the North 20 zone, wherever the stem fell, we attributed that entire crown area to that zone. So in that case, the whole crown area would go into the North 20 zone, even though it did spill over a little into the other ones. I'm not really going to go over the statistical methodology I used. I have a paper on this, which is available on my website. The website is on my introductory slide there. So please, if you're interested in the regression analysis I did, look at that or give me a call. I'll be happy to answer that. But it's a little tedious, even for me, and I did it. So what we found was, roughly speaking, let's see our next slide. So trees within 60 feet of the west side of a house reduce summertime electricity use. Within 40 feet of the south side, and then this was an odd result, within 20 feet of the north side of the house actually increased summertime electricity use. And I'll return to that. So these results are consistent with what Misha was showing you. And I have a little diagram which I think will help explain those. And this shows the length and orientation as well as the temperature cast by a 30-foot tree, and this will be on July the 15th in Sacramento. And on the end of each shadow, you have time of day. There. So you see in the early morning, or even the morning indeed, trees to the east side of a house will shade it. But during that time of day, it's the coolest time, so there's relatively little call for air conditioning. Then as the day heats up, the shade turns to the north, and the tree to the south will shade it. But you see the shadows are getting fairly short here. Hence why trees only within 40 feet of the south side influence summertime electricity use. And then when we get to the warmest times of the day, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon onwards, the shadows turn to the east. So trees to the west would shade the house. As you can see, these shadows also lengthen, hence why trees within 60 feet of the west side decrease summertime electricity use. So the north result was unexpected, and oddly, since then I've done some modeling studies using the Department of Energy program, and this result showed up there as well. And the best I can explain this is that trees close to the house, so within 20 feet, may act as a sort of heat blanket. That is, they slow radiant cooling at night. And this would be true of trees on any side of the house. But trees on the north don't have shade to offset that. So it clearly suggests that trees on the north side, not only do they not shade the house, it's possible that they may also have an increase in summertime electricity use. So clearly you want to avoid them there. Now, in Sacramento, as in most of the country, residential customers face a flat rate. That is, it doesn't vary by the time of day. So if they save a kilowatt of electricity at 6 o'clock in the morning, or if they save it at 6 o'clock in the evening, it makes no difference to them financially. However, it makes a very big difference to the utility. That's because the wholesale price of electricity varies hugely by time of day. And this next slide should demonstrate this. So this is the net revenue that SMUD receives by selling electricity by time of day. And there's some assumptions underlying this, but it gives you the general idea. So before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're making a profit by selling electricity. But between 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon and 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, they're losing money selling electricity. Indeed, right at the peak there at 6 o'clock, they're losing a considerable amount of money per kilowatt hour. So it very much does make a difference to the utility what time of day these savings occur. And if we go back to the shade slide, you'll see that those hours between 3, 4 o'clock and 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening are the hours that where a tree to the west of the house would shade it. So that's definitely trees to the west of the house are more important to the utility and will become more important to the consumers, because I know in Sacramento, and I assume in other parts of the country, utilities are starting to move towards time of day pricing. I believe it's indeed I don't know if it's all of California, there's a legislative mandate to do so. So it will become, then for residential customers, it will also be important, and trees to the west will become even more important. The next slide here will just give you an idea of how trees can flatten peak demand. So this is the demand profile for an average house within my sample of 460. The solid line there is without trees, and the dotted line is with trees. So it shows that with the average amount of tree cover in the sample. So it shows that trees can, to some extent, flatten peak demand. They're quite effective at doing that. And if this next slide here will show you, this is for a London plane tree planted on the west side of a house, and it shows the benefits to the utility, benefits to the homeowner, and total benefits. These are annual cost savings. As you can see, it obviously increases, tree size increases. But there's substantial benefits to the utility from a west side tree. Indeed, the analysis I did showed that SMUD they're paying, I believe, about $85 per tree, and they would, if that tree is planted on the west side of the house and it survived, they would recoup that investment around 26 years. So it is a cost-effective way of them reducing peak demand. And I don't want to use it too much time, but I'll very briefly mention, although I go over it more in my paper, carbon benefits. And as Misha said, there are two types of carbon sequestration benefits a tree can do. It can directly sequester into the tree itself, or it can reduce emissions from electricity generation. And this next slide shows there's two lines. What it essentially says is that these two types of benefits were roughly equal in Sacramento. So about half the benefits were from direct sequestration, and the other half were from avoided emissions from energy generation. So that's all I have. I encourage you to take a look at any of my papers if you have further questions, or please feel free to contact me directly.
Perfect. Thank you, Jeff. If Robin can open the lines for questions, please.
Thank you. At this time, once again, to ask a question, star 1 from your touch-tone phone, star 2 to withdraw, and please unmute your line and record your name.
Great. And again, y'all are welcome to ask a question online if you'd like me to come on and read the question for you. So, yeah, I'd apologize to Jeff that ran into his time a little bit. I had a lot of questions I was trying to get to.
And from the phone line, I'm seeing no questions at this time.
Okay. I've got one question. Misha said, this might be sort of a restatement of the question. Misha said saving was 120 kilowatts a year. How much did you say, Jeff?
Well, that would depend on the tree size.
Average.
Yeah, per tree. I actually haven't got the figures right in front of me for a particular tree. If you leave an email or something, I could find out what that is. But what I did was my results were in terms of kilowatts per square foot of canopy cover. So it would depend on the size of the tree and its location.
Okay. Any questions in queue?
I'm sorry, no questions in the queue at this time.
Okay. I've got two more, and then we'll move on to Jacob then. Can you say a little bit more about why or what factors are present, can you say a little bit more about why it costs the utility company more to sell energy in the afternoon hours than at other times of the day? Does that relate to the cost associated with the energy grid the utility company is tied to?
Well, I think Misha could also speak to this, but this is the time when you've got maximum demand and you have to bring online the more expensive methods of energy generation. So just to meet those, you have plants that may be idle at most hours of the day and just have to come online to meet peak demand, so that per kilowatt hour cost of generation is going to be a lot higher. Is that about right, Misha?
Correct.
Yeah.
And what's the difference between the direct carbon dioxide sequestration and the reduction of emissions?
Okay, so direct sequestration would simply be the tree as it's growing, it takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and incorporates it into the wood in the tree or the biomass in the tree. Or if the tree shades the house and you get a kilowatt hour, let's say, less of energy consumption, then as Misha was saying, for each kilowatt hour reduced, there'll be, I think it's 0.81 pounds of carbon dioxide will not be released into the atmosphere. And there's also a distinction there that's important. That's a permanent saving if you offset energy generation. However, the direct sequestration, it depends what happens to the tree when it dies. If it's put into a long-lived use, then that might last longer. But if that tree is just burned or if it's chipped, then that carbon will be released back into the atmosphere. So to some degree, the direct sequestration is only temporary.
Okay, and then finally, what is the estimated number of years for benefits to kick in after planting?
Well, they kick in straight away, but they're pretty small. So they're directly proportional, I think, in this, if I can go back to this. You'll see that there I've given you my little red dot here. I think, no, but at at year 0, you're getting very little. But it's, by the time you get to year 10, you're starting to get substantial benefits. It just depends on the size of the tree and its location. Clearly, a relatively small tree quite close to the house can still have some modest effect. But if that small tree is a long way from the house, then it's going to have little effect. So it's all proportional to the size of the tree.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jeffrey. And we'll move on to Jacob. And again, if there are additional questions for any of the presenters, you can ask them at the end of the session. Our last presenter today is Jacob Kaditz. He is the director of the Sacramento Shade Program at the Sacramento Tree Foundation. Jacob has a bachelor's in Latin American Studies from the University of Chicago and an MBA from the University of Pacific. He works to create healthy and sustainable communities through urban forestry. Jacob, it's yours.
Thanks, Jared. I'm going to talk a little bit today about the program on the ground, and I'm going to cover a few areas, just a quick overview of our operation, our experience with the development community, our access, our areas of success, and then our experience with the homeowner lastly. But just to start off with a little bit about the Sacramento Tree Foundation, we were founded in 1982 with a mission to create the best urban forest in the Sacramento region. And we focus in 3 principal areas: community building, education, and advocacy. And so we have a number of programs that work in all 3 of those areas. The Shade Tree program was started, as Misha said, in 1990 as a partnership with SMUD, the local nonprofit utility district. And really at that time, it was a large piece of what the Sacramento Tree Foundation did. In fact, it was nearly 100% of all of our funding. Right now, it's a little less than half of our funding, but we still very much enjoy the wonderful relationship we have with SMUD, and it's been a great partnership, and it's been something that's really helped the Tree Foundation grow to become the organization that it is today. So a little bit about the overview of the Shade Tree program. As Misha mentioned, there's close to 600,000 customers that SMUD deals with in the Sacramento County. We're very fortunate that the SMUD is such a phenomenal partner in that fact that they market the Shade Tree program to their customers, the residential customers, which is who we really try to target. And we hit about 300,000 of those customers at a time, multiple times during the year. That's particularly through bill inserts. There's a little rectangular form that goes in the bill, or sometimes the information is printed directly on the bill, just letting customers know they can call the Sacramento Tree Foundation and get a free SMUD energy-saving shade tree for their home. And then we have some postcards that go out that target new homeowners and new construction. And there's radio spots, door-to-door. We do a lot of trade shows and so forth. Once the customer hears about the program, then they call the Sacramento Tree Foundation and schedule an appointment with one of our community foresters who go out and site the trees at people's homes. We deal with about 5,000 customers yearly over about 1,000 square miles in Sacramento County. There are there are over about 1,300,000 residents in Sacramento County. So it's a big program. It's a very, very well-known program. There's a lot of positive goodwill about the program, both for the Sacramento Tree Foundation and SMUD. Talk to anybody in Sacramento County, the chances are they're familiar with the program. So 6,000 customers. We distributed about 14,000 energy-saving trees in 2008. Yearly we do currently about 12,000 to 14,000 trees. As Misha did mention, at the end, outside of the program, we were doing somewhere around 45,000 to 50,000 trees. Program delivery was a little different then. Now we're focused really on maximizing energy saving of the tree. We do the personal site visits, and it, along with many people having already participated in the program guidelines are a little bit stricter as well. We do employ, just so you're aware, technical advisory committees made up of urban forest scientists and local landscape architects and so forth that help choose our trees, make sure they are the appropriate trees for our region. And then finally, we're very concerned with stewardship. We want to make sure that our trees survive, and we send out postcards after the trees are delivered. Now, keep in mind that we don't actually plant the trees. Forester goes out and sites the trees. The homeowner then receives the trees 7 to 10 days later, along with stakes and ties, and then it's up to the homeowner to plant the trees. So the homeowner then receives a postcard letting them know that they need to plant the tree right away. We do yearly survival studies on a representative sample of the trees we distribute, and we do emails and so forth. We have a stewardship coordinator at the Tree Foundation that whose sole purpose is to answer incoming or questions, tree care questions. So moving on, there are really kind of two constituencies for the shade tree program in the general sense. You've got the institutions, developers, development agencies, school districts, and so forth, and then you have private homeowners. And we do work with both of those groups. And one of the questions that Jared and Act had put to me was, what's your experience working with developers? And really here in Sacramento County, it hasn't been what we might like it to be, and it's for a couple of reasons. Two big ones are our ordinances in Sacramento County. One is a shade tree, a parking lot ordinance, which requires that parking lot construction plan for shading of the parking lot to the degree of 50% shading. So that means that whoever's building the parking lot has to plant trees to shade or find some other mechanism. Trees are the most cost-effective way to do it, to shade 50% of the parking lot. And then the second one is that developments going in Sacramento County, and this is probably similar to most of the nation, developments must have a front yard tree to provide landscaping to the street and to the front of the home. And since the developers are already legally required to provide those trees, we won't provide those trees through the shade tree program. Misha mentioned that the money for the program, the program trees comes from public good funds, and we don't want to use public good money for private benefit. Now, we could potentially provide trees to backyards or an additional front yard tree, but developments nowadays are so small, the lot size is so small and the homes are so big that there's no real additional room in the front yards for plant trees, and developers tend to like to leave the backyards barren and let the homeowners plant trees when they move in or do the landscaping if they wish. We have had some moderate success with developers doing plan review and developers like the Green Stamp sort of association and working with the Tree Foundation, but that's been fairly minimal. The other point I want to mention here is solar, and there is a California solar roof initiative, and I've heard of some estimates that half to two-thirds of all new developments in Sacramento County actually in the next upcoming years will be solar communities, and of course trees and solar, while they may coexist, they have to be planned very carefully. And we've had developers contact us with interest of reviewing their plans so that we can make sure that trees won't interfere with solar projects. Areas of success working with institutions have been with the institutionalized landscape architect community, educating them about the most beneficial trees to plant in the region and the siting guidelines. And down below you see a picture of our tree siting guidelines, and you can go to our website and download those if you wish. Those are the list of trees that we recommend for our region and their siting guidelines. And then a lot of success actually with existing developments and retrofitting those existing developments. So a big one is apartment complexes. And over the last couple of years in particular, we focus on targeting apartment complexes and going out and finding those areas that could really use shade trees. And we can do several hundred trees at a time just in one single apartment complex if it's large enough. We've really been focusing on the low-income communities and working with the redevelopment agencies both in the city of Sacramento and in the county to provide high-value trees to low-income residents. And that's been very satisfying and very effective from an energy demand reduction standpoint. And then one other institution really that I wanted to mention are school districts. Last year we had a partnership with a very large school district of over 70 schools to plant 1,000 energy-saving shade trees in just a year, and that was a very successful project. It was very well received by the community, by the school district, and it was just so high impact. We went forward with another large school district of over 70 schools this year and entered into a contract to, over the next 3 years, plant about 1,000 trees a year. And working with those larger institutions from the top down has been very cost-effective for us. We always work with schools individually. If an individual school wants to call us and get trees for their school, that works well as well. But these sort of larger contractual relationships with institutions have been very successful and impactful. So I want to transition now to homeowners, because homeowners remain the large bulk of consumers for free energy-saving trees. Probably 90 to 95% of the trees we distribute are to homeowners. On average, we provide about two to three trees per home. And the question really is why, or what is motivating homeowners to partake in the program? And we have a number of sources for informing us of why homeowners do participate. There's, of course, anecdotal evidence. Every year, SMUD does a survey of its customers, and we get some limited response there. We've been very successful, actually, working with a UC Berkeley graduate student named Laura Roman, who's been implementing a mortality rate study effectively for the shade tree program to see what our true mortality rate is. And it's a 5-year longitudinal study. But as a result of that study, we're also able to capture information from homeowners about why they participated and have some more information from that study as well. We also had a very insightful homeowner focus group that brought together homeowners and volunteers at the Sacramento Tree Foundation, contracted with a company called GroupWorks to implement this focus group to see how it could impact urban forest. And part of that was about why people like planting trees. So let me start there, and I'll move forward to some of the other areas as well. This slide sort of exemplifies why homeowners in general are participating in the program. And the participants were asked to just draw a picture about what trees meant for them. And this woman drew a picture of her front door with her blazing hot doorknob, and just simply wanted shade for her home. This next table is separated between homeowners in established neighborhoods and homeowners in newer developments. And what you see really here about what people think are the most beneficial aspects of trees is beauty and comfort and shade. New developments, people are more interested in the shade by just a little bit, and established home neighborhoods, people are more interested in the beauty. And I think that's important because in the tree community, we really tend to focus on the benefits of trees in terms of air quality and particulate matter reduction and stormwater mitigation and so forth. And to the average homeowner, they're just thinking, hey, I'd like a really pretty tree in my home, and I'd like to be able to hang out in the yard, particularly here in Sacramento when it's 110 degrees. This next list is just a list of barriers to planting trees, and I'm going to skip through here because it's fairly self-explanatory and interested in saving time. If anybody has any questions about these, you can follow up with me later. And then finally, our survey about the survival study about why people participate in the shade tree program. And it is primarily because energy, again, the same with the results of the focus group, energy reduction from shade and landscape beauty, and of course the fact that the trees are free don't hurt at all either. So let me just finish because with a little bit of commentary about whether or not like a tree planting subsidy is warranted or is it effective. And from Nisha and Jeffrey's slide, you can really get the idea that of course trees make a big impact on energy savings, and there's a real positive dollar return from those energy savings, from that energy saving impact. And whether or not the degree of subsidy or it really depends on the degree of energy savings. It's different for every region. One thing I did want to mention, we don't actually plant the tree for homeowners, and there's a reason for that, and it's because we really want the homeowner to feel invested in the tree. They're not, they get this phenomenal free site visit. The forester goes out there and selects the right tree for them. We provide them with the stakes and ties. The homeowner's investment is actually go out and physically plant the tree. And then the theory there is that, of course, the homeowner will be more invested in the tree and water it, make sure that it survives for the long run. So let me just leave you with a picture of Sacramento. You can see our beautiful urban canopy there. And I suppose we'll open it up for questions, Jared.
Great. Thanks, Jacob. Robin, can you open the lines, please?
Yes, thank you. At this time, once again, *1 if you have a question from your touch-tone phone, *2 to withdraw, and just unmute your line and record your name. Again, *1 from your touch-tone phone.
Great. Thanks very much. And I also want to mention that we've been working with Sacramento Tree Foundation and SMUD and a number of other partners to try to give an incentive to utilities and nonprofits to work together on a similar partnership federally. And so Representative Matsui had introduced legislation a couple years ago, and it successfully passed the House Climate Bill earlier this year, and is now in the Senate, and we're hoping to see something similar there. So anyone who's interested in getting involved in that, let me know, because I think it would be a great program if this passed, and we'd love to see similar models all around the country. Jacob, going back to earlier question from Las Vegas, do you have any tips on caring for trees? Certainly Misha mentions, planting the right species that's water-wise, and I know you had mentioned a little bit about getting the homeowner invested, but anything else you can add to water-wise environment?
I'm sure the things I can contribute are the things that most of our audience is well familiar with in terms of mulching and so forth. Irrigation is kind of an interesting term, because we define irrigation as just being able to drag the hose out to the tree. It doesn't have to be, we don't require that if people actually have drip irrigation or sprinkler irrigation, if that's all that's there. It could be a bucket. So just educating, really around education, it's just educating the person that's going to care for the tree about the proper ways to water the tree, how to check to make sure the tree's getting enough water. Here in Sacramento, once the tree's established, if you plant the right type of tree, then during the summer months, you shouldn't have to water the tree. You can just rely on simple rainfall, and that should take care of most irrigation during the year unless there's an extended drought period. Las Vegas might be a little different, I understand, and so you might need irrigation all year round just to keep the tree healthy. So other than that, I probably don't have any other insights.
Okay. Can you expound a little bit more on additionality?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So additionality in this sense just refers to the fact that we don't want to provide a tree where somebody was already going to be planting a tree in the first place. So if a developer already has a legal requirement to plant a tree, a front yard tree, we don't want to come in and actually plant that tree for the developer, because in the case of the Sacramento Tree Foundation partnership, we're using public good money to provide private benefits. The developer doesn't have to purchase that tree, whereas they would have to purchase the tree otherwise if the program didn't come by. Where there's no legal requirement to plant the tree, where the developer might not be incentivized to plant the tree, then we'll go in and offer a free shade tree. And once the homeowner purchases the tree, then there's no legal requirement that they plant the tree. Then we work with those homeowners post-purchase to educate them about the benefits of trees and then provide them free energy-saving shade trees.
Okay, and what size trees are you dealing with?
Well, we do number 5s. The smaller tree, of course, plants better off. It'll be in the long term. But homeowners, educating homeowners has been one of our big, I don't want to say challenge, but it takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot to educate the homeowner about why you want to plant a number 5 tree versus a number 15 tree, and then really what makes a good tree. But without getting into those details, we do number 5 trees, except for where the tree might suffer vandalism in schools, along streets, and so forth, and then we'll do number 15 size trees. And they're all containerized trees.
For a nonprofit hoping to plant 4,000 to 5,000 trees per year with a similar program, how many staff do you think are needed to run that?
That's a good question, and actually I was going to talk a little bit about that in my presentation. We, for our program doing 12,000 trees to 14,000 trees a year, we have about 15 full-time staff members. We have the schedulers to make the site visits, 2 schedulers. We have 6 foresters that go out and do the site visits. We have 3 nursery staff that we don't grow our trees. We purchase the trees wholesale from local nurseries, and then we hold them in our yard and then deliver the trees. So that's what our nursery crew does, and they make sure we have quality trees. We have a database administrator who manages all our files and inputs all the information about the individual homeowners. We've done over just about 500,000 trees since the program inception, and our files are immense. And then we have a stewardship person that answers questions about tree care full-time. So, if you can roughly, as just a rule of thumb, maybe scale down if you're going to do half that many trees. You're still going to need schedulers. You'll need less foresters and less delivery people, I would think. Okay.
Do you work with developers groups to help them locate their legally required trees to do the most benefits in shading?
We do. We do. the issue again is that lots now are so small in the front yard. The available planting space is so small that there's really not a lot of options anymore, particularly in new developments where you can actually plant the front yard tree. But for those developers that are interested, we do offer them insights not only about the placement of their tree, but also the selection of their tree. We have a relationship with the Building Industry Association here in Sacramento, and that's been very beneficial, and they've relied upon us to some degree to help them pick the right trees for their development.
And for any of the presenters, do you have experimental evidence that a tree planted on the west side will give the most benefits?
There is. Well, so there's been modeling studies that have suggested that. There's been one experimental study in Sacramento that was done 10 years ago. Akbari did that, where they brought in trees and put them on the south and west side and saw reduction. And then my study is observational. That is, we use actual building data, and that did it. So we have modeling, experimental, and observational studies all suggesting that, and that's pretty strongly suggestive that these results do hold.
Okay. Does the operator have any questions in queue?
I'm sure no questions in the queue at this time.
All right. I've got one more question here. I think it's for Jacob. How do you encourage homeowners to provide timely watering of trees? What about pruning? Jacob, you still there?
Sorry, I had it on mute. I've got a little bit of a cough. So in terms of encouraging homeowners to provide timely watering for their trees, there are two mechanisms, really. One is, of course, just letting them know that the tree is going to die if they don't water the tree, simply put. And then the other one is all around surface rooting. Providing timely watering trees and watering correctly is going to reduce the instances of surface rooting, and that's very powerful for homeowners who don't want to see trees interfere with things such as sidewalks and foundations and so forth. And there was a second part of that question, Jared?
Pruning.
Oh, pruning, that's right. Pruning, what we've actually recently been doing is collecting emails, as many emails as we can for our customers, and sending out a short seasonal tree care information. We use Constant Contact. It's been very effective for us. And they can, during the fall, we say, hey, you got your trees 2 years ago or a year ago or 3 years ago, sort of our target range right now. Now's the time to prune your tree. We also have classes that we hold throughout the county, and we invite those customers to come in and attend those pruning classes. And just, again, it's about education, letting them know that if they prune up front in the first 5 years of the tree's life, then they can really save themselves money and time in the long run.
Okay. Actually, I have another question here. How do these numbers for energy savings compare to the impact on crime reduction and home values when dollarized? Jacob, specifically, do you focus the group? Does your focus group indicate that selling trees based on energy economics is not what motivates people?
I can also answer quickly something that one thing. They're not. You have to remember, the effect on house prices is several orders of magnitude larger. But it should also include, that will include the energy savings, or it should. So while it's bigger, it also should incorporate that. So.
And I think Jeffrey just stated it perfectly. Home values are very the effect on home values for trees is by Dr. Kathleen Wolf, I think, has done most of those studies, and it's very powerful. But homeowners don't seem to respond to it as much as they do beauty of the home and then just the cooling effect of the tree. Cooling effect and energy saving sort of cross over quite a bit, and it also might, with the evidence that we have about why homeowners participate, it might be because our target audience, really the people that we're collecting information from, sign up because it's an energy saving program. But from our experience, it really is. We really focus just on the beauty of the trees, the difference it'll make in the homeowners look and feel of their neighborhood and their home, and the fact that they will reduce energy and they'll be able to use their yard. Keep in mind too, for our region, as Misha said, it's very, very hot here during the summer, very hot and very dry. You can't walk on the streets during the summer, 2 months out of the year, 3 months out of the year, unless the streets are shaded.
All right, and I said it was going to be the last question, but I can't resist. This one's pretty pointed. A study on the energy consumption found by an investigator from Auburn University was that the presence of a woman in the household increases energy consumption significantly. Can anyone comment on this?
No comment.
Well, I will stupidly comment on that. Well, from my personal experience, you know, my wife and I fight over the thermostat. You know, I have it turned down in the winter, she turns it up. So I know that the presence of I would spend less on energy if my wife wasn't in the house.
That's anecdotal, Jeffrey.
Yeah, well, but you know what the plural of anecdote is? Data. So.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold it at that. We had a pretty lively discussion, and I think all the presenters have given their contact information, so if anyone wants to follow up with them, it seems like they're more than welcoming that. So I want to thank all of our presenters. It was a great session. The recorded session and the resource list will be available in about a week for anyone who completes the survey that's coming up on the screen now. Please fill it out. It takes a couple minutes, helps us to improve our sessions. And like I said, just a couple quick questions. The next webcast is Putting the Green Back into Green Jobs, Part 2, Seeding Career Opportunities. Will be on November 19th, as always, the third Thursday of the month. Again, I want to thank our presenters, all the participants who listened, and our sponsors, the Home Depot Foundation and the USDA Forest Service. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. This does conclude today's conference call. You may disconnect. Have a great afternoon.